Experts say managing your finances and income is one important way to manage your day-to-day life. How much you spend every day, what you spend money on, and even planning for retirement. Research shows that many civil servants in Nigeria borrow money in expectation of their salary. Then when the salary comes, it is used to pay off debts, and then they borrow again until the next payday. This, experts say, may not happen if they know how to manage their personal finances. So how do we manage our personal finances? How does prudent and proper management of our personal finances help us live our lives better? We will be back with guests in the studio to go deeper into these issues. My name is Dennis Adinle. Welcome to Nigeria Today. Right, in the studio we have to discuss managing personal finances an economist in person of Yusha'u Aliyu. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And also we have joining us Mr. Omale Ben Amedu, the principal consultant, MB Amedu Associates. He is a development consultant. Thank you also for joining us on Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Right, well, we're still in the festive season, and more likely than not, a lot of spending has been going on in during this period of the year. Let's start with you, Mr. Omale. At the risk of stating the obvious, what exactly does it mean to buy personal finances?
Well, personal finances are finances that are acquired or earned from your day-to-day activities, or what we call monthly paid or daily paid workers. Is what you genuinely acquire from your course of existence. And most likely, most people don't live on the actual personal finances or income, because the likelihood is that what is available for you to expend on goes a little or far beyond your reasonable level of income. And so it makes people go far beyond their reasonable income, and they spend more most times.
All right, Mr. Yusha'u, again, at the risk of stating the obvious, why would it be important for people to manage their personal finances?
It is important when you look at modern economies. Before monetization, consumers are just faced with the problem of choice within their environment. But with the advent of monetizations, prices were fixed for different things, including labor. So there are those on fixed income, as you rightly identified, those on salaries, wages, and similar incomes, and there are those on flexible income. So, but when managing finances in respect to that has to do with financial literacy. How careful is somebody, how frugal is somebody, how prudent is somebody also matters. And at the same time also environment factors. Sometimes also it has to do with the elasticity of the product, the price elasticity of what individual consumes also play a greater role. So in economics generally we look at finances as income and expenditure, or what you are getting. And that is why when we talk in economics about personal finances, we carefully dwell into what is called effective demand, because there are real consumers and there are others that are consumers. For instance, you are a consumer, I am a consumer, Mr. President is a consumer, and many other people there. We are all consumers because we have income. So, but effective demand matters. Effective demands mean that how much are you likely to get and how much are you likely to spend. But it's summarized when you took that particular product at a price. And that is why individual has to be careful in understanding what he consumes and understanding also where to generate income. More likely those on fixed income faces a lot of troubles, including inflation. And that is why sometimes the PPP, the purchasing power parity, that is looking at the exchange rate of a common domestic currency also plays a greater role. So when we dwell into it, we will see why it is important at different intervals.
All right, going on from that, obviously you've identified a lot of factors that come into play with regards to how people manage their finances. What factors would then influence the ability of an individual to be able to successfully manage their personal finance?
First of all, to understand the environment he belongs and to understand also his consumption pattern. Let me give you an instance. If I choose to consume tuwo miyan kuka, which is a product within my environment, I can do that with little income. But when I choose to consume the same tuwo miyan kuka from local market, I decided to go to eateries. The definitely price will change. It's the same product. And that is why Hicksian analysis, the American, Professor Hicks in his indifference curve analysis identified why consumer consume. Because a consumer consumes product for many reasons. And it started from the fundamental economic problems of what, when, and how. And that is what also lead to opportunity cost. So if I choose to consume tuwo miyan kuka, which is my own food, I can consume it at 10 naira if I go to local market and purchase ingredient and took it home. And at the same time, the same product, I will consume it for 1,000 naira if I decide to go to eateries, because they are waiting for me to make money. So you see now, it is rest on me to be more frugal, to understand why I need to consume. And taste also plays a greater role why consumers consume, because Hicks identified, for instance, in his indifference curve analysis, which is widely accepted, that even though now, because of digitalization of economies, there is controversy to understand whether a consumer is rational or irrational. But looking at that fact, consumers, let us assume, because all these theories has to do with assumption. Let us assume that the consumer now decided to consume bundle of good A, probably tuwo miyan kuka. The president may decide to consume bundle B, probably fura de nono. So we are all consumers at the same time. Yeah. And possibly, for instance, if we put the right assumption, the vice president may decide to consume amala and ewedu. So if we all decide to consume this, we pay prices. Right. So let us look at our income. Let us look at the market we are going to get this product. And also, the driving force out of all this is satisfaction. And that satisfaction is measured. And it is measured based on utility. The utility I drive from consuming that product A may not likely be the same with your own utility. Yeah. So definitely, income plays a great role, and you have to be efficient, and also you don't have to be lazy. You must have a work to do, you must have a business to do to have an income that will facilitate your own choice in the market with very low opportunity cost. Okay, well, that's a very interesting and enlightening analysis you've given us there, and we certainly take it on board. Let's go on to budgeting now, Mr. Omale. Obviously, budgeting has a key role to play with regards to successful management of one's personal finances. How easy is it to make a budget and stick to it?
See, the issue of budgeting is a planning and a foresight of how you are supposed to spend your resources. Yeah. Unfortunately, we live in a society where unforeseen expenditures come in every now and then. And when my colleague is proving his analysis of his profession, it sounds very enticing and very encouraging and convincing. But the reality on ground is different from what we have learned from schools and what is being said all over. You discover that an average Nigerian lives in a situation that he has 10 naira to earn at the end of the month. But the demands from his villages, from his siblings, extended relations, might far exceed even 20 naira. Yeah. So it becomes very difficult for him to manage the resources from the beginning. No matter how well he plans his budget, it is usually unfortunate that the planned budgets are always a failure. It's like when you make promises like Christians when they say New Year resolutions. As you make up your resolution at the beginning of the year, before you reach the end of February, the resolutions have already collapsed into the system. Yeah. That's the problem we have. If not reality, ideally, planning a budget of what you are supposed to expend would depend on your pocket. Because with the proverb that you cut your coat according to your size, it's not actually the cutting according to your size, according to the piece of cloth that you have. So your budget will be planned within the regulation of what you earn. But when circumstantial expenditure comes, there is nothing you can do about it. That is where you have the difficulty in adhering to our budgeting.
So what you're saying basically is that it's not necessarily the fault of the individual.
It is not necessarily the fault of the individual, the circumstantial necessities on ground.
All right, and that's goes on with regards to saving as well. It's the same problem.
Well, you know, this little book written, the Richest Man in Babylon, gives a profile of what you should earn, of what you earn, and how you should put a percentage down at the end of every month. It is not that it's not practicable, but the situation where we find ourselves, like my colleague talked about the environment where we find ourselves makes it difficult for us to actually live by that expectation. And for some of us who decided not to work on government salaries and decided to opt for the private sector to be on your own, despite all your profile that you want to live on your own, make easier and faster money, being based on how effective and productive you are, you still don't live within the means of what you earn, because the people look at you and say that the much you earn will also determine the much you should be spending to your relations and your siblings and your friends and acquaintances around you.
All right, Yushao, as an economic expert, how then can people identify what they need to consume, as you were talking about earlier, so that they can save adequately for, you know, the rainy day?
You see, savings is a product of surplus.
Yeah.
An individual faces with two difficult situations: basic necessities, food and shelter. This is what is taking so much from people's income, with the daily bread syndrome. So if, for instance, now let us assume that an individual household, you know, in economics we don't talk of single, we talk of households, government, and also private sector. So when an individual is planning, he has to determine what the value he has, either on fixed income or flexible. Fixed income usually end up in trouble. And in trouble as a result of there is a lot of deficiencies attached to that syndrome of being fixed. One is inflation. Anytime there is an inflation, whatever you plan, whatever you budgeted, it has been shattered. And you have to start from square zero. And that is why financial literacy has to work in here. If an individual is on fixed income, he has to understand that at the time he has met his own basics. Food, excluding shelter, for instance, because you must eat first.
Yeah.
Then you now provide adequately for rainy days on certain commitments that are coming. And that is why most of the budget, if you check the salary structure, is different from wages. In salary structure, it's always talking about this is your housing, this is your medical, this is your transport. So if you understand that is what is coming to me, then definitely you have to prioritize your own choice. That is by making, if I am to consume probably a good A, I should go to where I will have maximum benefit. And I should also, and that is why in African tradition, like I rightly mentioned, we are attached to market. So you now plan market days. I need ABC to take me this period. When you have that on ground, you will have the first stability. When you now plan also your transport, you have to also understand that in planning transport, if you are a car owner, you're probably going to have probably 1,000 naira for fueling every day. You should understand that you need that to be on ground so as to sustain the income. And at the same time also, like you rightly pointed out, requests from far relations, that is a factor of environment and culture, and you cannot shy away from it. So if you cannot shy away from it, you must understand the concept of yes and no. The concept of yes is that if you approve to give A to this, it has to be planned in your budget. And if you don't want that to happen also, it's a minus in the budget line. So carefully, the constraint we are having in this system is that if those on fixed income are shortchanged, those in the private sectors are also shortchanged because of the multiplier principle. If I have more income, and I go to market regularly, the GDP will be growing. But if I have less income and I don't go to market regularly, and people like me are plenty, the GDP growth rate will be low. And that is why and this private sector will not also grow because they are employers of the surplus labor. And in most cases, the private sector determines what happens between government and a household.
All right. Well, this is certainly a very interesting topic that has impact on each and every one of us in the society. Let's take a break now. You're watching Nigeria Today, and we're discussing managing personal finances. Let's go out into the streets with our correspondent Abdul, who earlier went out to ask some Nigerians how they manage their personal finances. Stay with us.
I spend more than I earn because what I earn in a month doesn't meet up with the challenges of my daily activities or my daily challenges in the house. So you can see one must spend more than he earns. Sometimes you go to borrow to augment so that when you get money you pay back.
Managing my economy, I've tried to have a budget of what I need for a month. And if unexpected expenses comes in, I will be able to know, sometimes friends and family will call you, bro, please, I'm broke, I need 1K, I need 2K. And so many times you don't budget for that one. So if someone should ask me, I need 3K, okay, bro, I can't afford 3K, I can afford 1.5, please manage it. So I think that is how I've been helping myself.
I cut my spending according to the way I earn my income, because it's not even possible to spend above your income, because if you spend above your income, definitely it will affect you and your future.
What I normally do, sometimes my transport, normally it's not less than 20,000, but in some cases I had to take a miles, or maybe making it, I trek sometimes, I trekked a miles to augment my daily income, so that it will not be more than what I was spending monthly.
We're back in the studio with Yusha'u Aliu and Omale Ben Amodu. You heard some of the experiences of members of the public there. The last one saying he treks sometimes just to save money. Has it really got to that stage where people have to resort to trekking to and from their various destinations? Omale?
The issue of trekking is just because we find ourselves in a situation where we live alien lives. Trekking depends on the distance that you need to take a walk. It's like keeping yourself fit too, that you don't need to be running up and down in the morning or in the evenings to keep fit. Taking some work at a point to get to work is also helpful. And the issue of this expenditure, you see, when you look at it, it comes to a situation where somebody earns an extent, and due basically to lack of infrastructure that we have in our society. Because in a situation where a civil servant is earning 20,000-30,000 naira per month, and he lives in a place where he spends half of that money on transport on daily basis, there is no how he plans his or her budget that it will ever be achievable. And the situation is, if the basic facilities were there, infrastructure were there, logistics, like in Nigeria, Abuja, where we used to have Air-Rufai buses, which would have been relatively cutting down the cost of transport for the workers, and the things are no more feasible. It means they will have to pay much for their transportation on daily basis, and at the end of the month, they are taking so much chunk from their salaries. And as you get to work, you have some food to eat at the end before you close at the end of the day. You get home to the house, there is no electricity supply for you. You need to buy fuel to fuel your generator so that you can have light. There is no water facility. You need to buy water from Mirror, from whatever kind of hawkers. With all these things happening, and the basic infrastructure are not there for the people, there is no how that you can manage your resources within your income.
All right, expenses. You shall. Let's talk about personal accounts. Would you, in your view, having a joint account, for example, with your spouse, would this help to alleviate challenges that families may face?
No, not at all, because when you go to, there are situations where that is warranted. There are situations where managing finances separately is better. because of unforeseen circumstances, and because in most cases when income is mentioned of a household, is we identify the head of the family, for instance, and at the same time you may have working class among the same family, but manage it. But what matters more, like you rightly pointed out, Mr. Male has rightly pointed, the relations in most cases, even if you put it together, is you are putting two families again outside your own family, because your wife may have her own family and may have her own challenges, and you may have your own from your own side. And when the two are put together, then there is going to, it's like when you study partnership in business, you understand that there are challenges of a single trading part, the sole proprietorship, and there's problem of joint venture. So in most cases, it's better you look at your own responsibilities with your income, because when satisfaction is mentioned, it is not the satisfaction of the two, it's a satisfaction of one. If you choose to bank with bank A, probably the other mate will want to have a different bank. That is a test. That is a fashion. And there are situations where family levels you have ostentatiousity. People live on different tests. Yeah, you want to. I need just 5,000 to have my clothes on. With
to be extravagant.
So, my wife may likely want 50,000 naira less, for that matter. And if there is joint account, there is joint problem. So in economies, we respect individuality, and that is why government is treated separately. Private sector is treated separately, but the challenges are the same. Looking at the budget line, any budget that is made, probably for government side with trillions, is not achieved, for instance. So how can you even expect somebody that is budgeting 150,000 naira annually for him to achieve? For government, it has its own reservation. For private sector, they have their own challenges, and at the same time, the household.
All right, Mr. Omale, in a lot of civil service organizations, there is what we know as the cooperatives. How are these assisting people in terms of managing their finances? A lot of times, regardless of the money that's being saved, they still face challenges and end up borrowing loans or even withdrawing what they have contributed in their cooperatives. So how do we reconcile that?
Well, one of the people on the streets just spoke now that most times his expenditures exceed his income. Yeah. And it becomes a soft landing for civil servants when these cooperatives exist. It's not that it's not a good feature, but the issue is that it lures them into borrowing beyond whatever they have saved. Yeah. And at the end of the year, most times, like just about a week ago or so, some of the cooperatives, they were sharing out food stuff at the end of the year, which is an attribute of what they have been able to acquire as a profit from what they have borrowed out to people. At the end of it, most people, what they borrowed had already overlapped what they expended, they saved. It comes up with a situation and you just get back some little money to pay back what is outstanding on them and only come out with whatever has been shared for them. It is not that it is not a good scheme. It is a very good scheme, but it also creates, a laissez-faire character in the people that as long as this one is there, let me borrow from February, March. Before you know, at the middle of the month, they have borrowed beyond what they can pay back, and they keep paying back until the end of the year. It's a good scheme, but it's been managed wrongly. I mean, it's been operated wrongly by the contributors themselves.
All right. Would you say there needs to be tightening up of the laws governing cooperatives?
Yeah, even when you tighten up, they are managed by human beings. There still be some sentiments of softness towards individuals where they will still borrow beyond the certain limit, and even as much as they try to manage, it's an environment, like my colleague has said, it's an environment that is putting us into these small troubles that will always carry over to the following year. And sometimes some people, because you have borrowed beyond a certain limit, you cannot have, or you have guaranteed or shorted somebody who has borrowed and the person is owing. Therefore, you cannot collect what you have even contributed, and it spills over to the following year.
All right, Mr. Yeshao, just give us briefly your advice to the general public with regards to how best they can manage their finances.
For workers, I encourage them to have a very sound cooperative societies where they will have soft landing to augment, but to be more prudent and frugal. That is from there. For the government side, there is government to look at the income itself. Government is a determinant. It's a determinant to look at inflationary trends. Inflationary trend has to be compensated adequately at intervals. From the private sector, the operators in the private sector have to be encouraged with a lot of facilities with low interest rate, so that they can ginger up the economy and took away other responsibilities. You know, when private sector is advancing, if I am a worker, my wife can be in private sector and she will be augmenting. Because today she has her pay, definitely she wants to enjoy chicken. For instance, she'll get it.
Okay, well, it's certainly a very interesting topic. A lot of issues and factors that come into play with regards to managing personal finances. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for. We have been discussing managing personal finances. We hope you've learned one or two things from our discussions. We'd like to thank Mr. Yusha'u Aliu and Mr. Omale Ben Amedu for your contributions on this quite important topic. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, as ever, we thank you for watching. And remember, you can watch this episode or any other online at www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Dennis Adigunloye. Bye for now.